Mr. Speaker, we've seen protests in Charlotte, North Carolina. There was a shooting also in Tulsa, Oklahoma. When you see that, what can be done?
Well, first of all, it's heartbreaking. And this country has to find new ways of learning how to heal and understand all the different perspectives. What we're doing here in the House is I assembled a working group of members, of former law enforcement members, members of the Black Caucus, Judiciary Committee, and we have a working group on this. They were in Detroit last week doing listening sessions. They're now all doing ride-alongs with the police. And what we're trying to do is quietly and calmly come together and find where we can find some common solutions. I think the big thing that needs to be done is in each of these communities are people who are endeavoring to come up with solutions. I think we need to find those people and help them with their solutions. I look at Omar Jawar, a pastor in Dallas. He has a program called Urban Specialists. He and Anton Lucky, a guy who was a former gang member, are making sure that young people in the communities are finding paths out of poverty and reconciling. I think that what we have to do is go find those poverty fighters, those reconcilers, those people who are fixing these problems in the communities. Don't displace them, lift them up, and get behind them.
What about from the national level? Is there a role for leaders to come in and play that calming role?
Well, that's what we're doing with our working group. But again, I don't want to make the case that the federal government can just pass a law and this is all going to go away. I think what we need to do is make sure that we go into communities, listen, learn, identify local homegrown solutions, support them, and then see if we can find good solutions that can be replicated in other areas. And that's the kind of dialogue we're trying to achieve.
Bottom up, not top down.
That's right, that's right.
So when Donald Trump suggests stop and frisk for Chicago, that feels like top down.
Well, I think Chicago should make that decision. New York made that decision, and a lot of people in New York thought it was successful.
Do you think it's a good idea?
Well, I think you have to make sure that there are reasonable suspicion standards. I think it has to be done the right way. I think local police and local communities need to make those decisions. You can talk to New Yorkers and talk to former mayors of New York who thought it worked well. Obviously, it cannot be done along racial lines, along ethnic lines. It's got to be done along security lines where those reasonable suspicion standards are met. But again, I just don't think that's something we should pass a law here to do. That's something that local communities have to decide how best to keep them safe.
In terms of the relationship between the races in America, has that gotten better or worse as a result of the presidential campaign? Because all these issues flow through the presidential campaign, don't they?
Well, I don't think we're in a good place right now, that's for sure. I can't tell you whether it's gotten better or worse. We've made great progress over the years. I remember going down to Selma with John Lewis, when I was a brand new member of Congress, learning about what he did at the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and those things. So we've made good progress, but we still have a long ways to go. And I think what it is we have to learn. Each of us have to get better perspectives, get outside of our comfort zones, understand what other people are thinking and saying and what they see, and then try and come up with common ground solutions. And that's, to me, the kind of healing that has to occur. And you're not going to have that done in the fourth quarter of a presidential election. This is campaign season. So the reason we have this working group that's trying to do it quietly and calmly is because we don't want to make this a political football.
You had said at one point when we talked, you hoped that Donald Trump would offer a positive vision that's inclusive. Has he done that?
Well, I think he has in certain areas. I'm glad that he is making inroads into the African American community and the minority community. I think the effort is very important. Half of it is just showing up and trying and learning and listening. So I think.
But it's been in the fourth quarter.
He's brand new at this. He never ran for office before. It is in the fourth quarter, but I'm glad he's doing it. So I think that he's going to learn as he goes. But what I see in this campaign is a very binary choice. And I came here to do big things. I took this job to do big things, to fix big problems that are kind of getting out of control in this country. And I think we have a far greater chance of success at getting those solutions in place with Donald Trump than clearly with Hillary Clinton.
Let me ask you, you said something about looking at the country on January 20, 2017, and you said that you could easily get discouraged.
Yeah.
Why? What discourages you?
The problems our country's facing, the debt crisis that's in the future, a healthcare system that's pretty much in the middle of an implosion, poverty that is stubbornly high, national security. We don't have a national security strategy. I think we have a president basically phoning it in and just pushing it off to the next administration. We have a military that's getting hollowed out, and we have an economy that is just limping along, and that is why families don't see opportunity. That's why 70% of Americans think this country is going in the wrong direction. Look, this is this time for my,
I knew
you know I was going to pull this out on you. We believe we need to be a proposition party, not just an opposition party. We believe the country has big problems that is in need of solutions, and so go to better.gop. I know this is a shameless plug, but we're offering solutions on poverty, on the economy, on national security, and restoring self-government, the Constitution. And these are the things that we're offering the country, and that is why I say on January 20th, I want to see a government that is capable of putting these kinds of big reforms in place.
Why isn't your party's nominee able to pull that out of his pocket? You've got a ready.
I've got an extra copy. I'm happy to give it to him.
But yet he hasn't.
He has, in a sense, that he does support what we're trying to do. He has, in a sense, that we know we have someone that will work with us to put this in law, and we're darn sure Hillary Clinton doesn't support doing this. She doesn't support fixing the welfare system. She doesn't support comprehensive tax reform. She doesn't support getting us the robust national security and rebuilding of the military we need. And I know she doesn't support restoring the Constitution.
You, over the years, have made the case several times that in campaigns you need to have a pamphlet like that with a set of ideas, not just
It's always been my belief.
Not just to have a pretty thing to show,
Right.
but to make the case to the people consistently and regularly so that you have a mandate to govern.
That's right.
So if the nominee to the Republican Party isn't consistently making the case for those policies, where's the mandate come from?
Well, I think we can make a contribution. I see this as our contribution to the campaign this year. We here in the House are offering very specific solutions. It's a 6-point agenda on poverty, the economy, national security, on restoring self-government, the Constitution, making the government more accountable. And so what we think we can do is add sort of a foundation of ideas and solutions to this conversation so that the country can see that we're offering a better way, that we're offering an alternative path than the one we are on. Clearly, Hillary Clinton is basically saying she's going to give us a third Obama term. She's going to take the country in the same direction it's going on. Most people don't like that direction. It is our obligation as the other party to offer a different path, and that is what we're doing. And so we believe, in combination, in conjunction with our nominee, Donald Trump, that we can offer this better path, and that's what our contribution to this campaign is.
Recently, Donald Trump offered some maternity leave proposals that Republicans like you, and you in specific, used to call an unfunded mandate. Why is the Republican nominee proposing a non-conservative unfunded mandate?
Look, because I think he's trying to get at an issue that we all want to get at, which is there are women in the workforce that have additional challenges. We have problems that need to be addressed. And so what I'm excited about is he's jumping into the policy realm, offering ideas and solutions. That's the kind of debate we want to have. We want to not only just acknowledge that we have problems in this country that need fixing, but we want to get on to debating the solutions themselves. So I think I welcome the fact that he is offering concrete policy solutions to fix problems that we need to address in this country, and that's a great step in the right direction.
Even if they're ones with which you disagree.
No problem.
A lot of Republicans I talk to who are not big Donald Trump supporters gain confidence from this idea, which is that Paul Ryan has a plan. Donald Trump is not one who is excessively interested in details, and they hope that if he's president, he'll basically just sign the Paul Ryan plan.
Look, first of all, I do think we need to restore Article 1 powers of the Constitution, the separation of powers. So I do believe...
Explain what that means to people.
Well, so lawmakers, the legislative branch, we're the ones who are supposed to write the laws. The executive branch is supposed to faithfully execute those laws. That's not been happening. It's not just Obama, it's been Republican presidents also. We have this fourth branch of government of unelected bureaucrats effectively writing our laws, and so we're losing self-government. We're losing a government by consent of the governed. We want to restore that. That's actually part of our plan. And so I like the idea that people are saying Congress is going to take the lead, because that's what the Constitution says we should in fixing problems and writing laws. And so that, to me, is a very good conversation to have. And again, to the point, and I think your question sort of implies this, we are offering very specific solutions to the country's big pressing problems. And we think they'll make us better off. We think we'll restore opportunity, better economic growth, more national security, more accountability. And yes, we want to have a president that will help us get these things over the finish line, and that's why we're all supporting our nominee.
Let me ask you about debt. You mentioned debt. You have worked with the Center for Responsible Budget. They've scored the Trump plan as creating $5.3 trillion in increased debt.
Yeah, I don't know if I would agree with that particular score. We are offering a tax reform plan that the Tax Foundation and others have looked at, which is very responsible, which we think, according to the Tax Foundation...
But is Donald Trump's responsible?
Well, I haven't looked at the details. His latest plan, you're talking about his tax plan, his latest tax plan was much closer to the one we're offering.
But it still has a huge deficit number. He doesn't want to touch entitlements.
So obviously, we are offering, again, comprehensive health care and entitlement reform. We think we'll have a nominee. We think Donald Trump will be more than willing to work with us on this. But more importantly, on the tax plan, you've got to get tax rates down to create more economic growth. Our plan does that. His plan is similar to ours, so I think we're all going in the right direction.
But do voters know that? I mean, presidential campaigns tend to control the conversation.
They sort of suck the oxygen out of it.
The
I've
oxygen
noticed
out.
that. Yeah, I know. I've been involved in those.
You've got the pamphlet. You're doing what you can. But Donald Trump he's driving the bus here. And he's driving the bus with a plan that has a much bigger deficit than you would ever allow. He's not going to touch entitlements. He's offering plans for maternity leave that Rush Limbaugh says are not conservative. He's the one driving the bus. These are his plans. I guess the question is, what is a voter to think about?
Yeah.
Isn't the bus going to go in his direction?
No, I think, back to our earlier point, Congress writes these laws. Congress is the one that writes the laws, that puts them on the president's desk. And our Congress is offering very specific solutions. And I know from talking to Donald Trump repeatedly about these things that we have someone that is going to work with us on putting these reforms in place. So I have every bit of confidence that we have a president we can work with to get these things done. I know for a fact Hillary Clinton's not for any of these things. Hillary Clinton's not going to help us reform the tax code, rewrite the welfare laws to get people from welfare to work. She's not going to help us restore the Constitution, let alone rebuild our military and have an agenda of national security, because she was the architect of the hollowing out of our national security. So to me, it's a pretty clear choice.
But I know choices are important in elections, but isn't it incumbent upon when you were on the national ticket, regardless of who the option is, you don't judge your plans by the Democrats alone. Isn't there a standard that a candidate should live up to in terms of whether things add up, whether they're operating within the rules and truth of the way things are?
Truth? Hillary Clinton's the
Wait,
Democrat
I'm asking
nominee.
about, but you know there's a standard that a candidate has to live up to, right? You're trying to build a mandate.
Sure. So I think Donald Trump is new. He's a business guy running for president. So you're not going to see a conventional campaign because he is not a conventional politician. He's not even a politician.
Although it's quite
in many ways that's refreshing to people in this country. I think that's why he's been so successful. I think it's why he won the primary in the first place. So what do we say and do about this? Those of us here in Congress in this majority, we say this is what we're going to do. This is the direction we're heading.
So the public should pay attention to your pamphlet and not the Republican
nominee. No, they should
nominee?
pay attention to both of us, because in conjunction with our nominee, we are offering a unified front of solutions. That's what we should do.
Let me ask you about the Republican Party. Ryan Priebus said anybody who's not supporting Donald Trump might face some kind of penalty from the Republican Party next time around if they run.
I'm not going to comment on any of that. That's not my purview. That's the party's purview. Look, I think people should go with their conscience, do what they want to do. What the party rules are, heck if I know. That's not something I'm in charge of. I have anything to do with, so I'm not going to spend my time worrying about it or commenting on it.
You had to do a national debate. Any advice for the...
Yeah, over-prepare. Over-prepare. Look, Hillary Clinton's been doing this most of her life. She is the consummate pro. This is new for Donald, so I think he should obviously over-prepare for it. And the thing I believe, obviously I prepared for these myself, you have to offer the country a vision, go on offense, prosecute your case, hold your opponent accountable, but then show the country the direction you want to go, and prepare, and I hope he's doing that.
You met with Ivanka Trump. How did that go?
Great.
What did you talk about?
Just the campaign, where it's going. She talked about her ideas on women in the workforce, and just general issues. I gave a speech right before we met at the New York Economic Club. Talked about our poverty plan, things like that.
You've spent a lot of time in hard-hit communities. You did it quietly, and then you're working on how to speak to those communities. I want to ask you about something Donald Trump said. He said, our African-American communities are absolutely in the worst shape that they've ever been in before, ever. You take a look at the inner cities, you get no education, you get no jobs, you get shot walking down the street. They're worse. Honestly, places like Afghanistan are safer than some of our inner cities. Do you see it that way?
I don't see it that way. That's not how I would describe it, but I'm glad he's actually going into these communities and trying. I think it's important to show up, and I think it's important to show up and listen. And when you do that, you come out with different perspectives, and I'm glad he's starting to do that.
You're focusing on listening, but when someone says that you're going to get shot, you get no education, you get no jobs, is that listening or is that telling?
Well, I think he's campaigning, and I think there's a difference here. But like I said, I am pleased that he's making the effort. Not every person running for president does that. So I think there's got to be something to be said about making a concerted effort to go into communities. This is something that Republicans need to do more of. more of us need to go in communities where we don't expect to get a single vote, but we hope to get a perspective so that we can come up with solutions. And I'm glad he's trying to do that.
What's your feeling about the prospects of a possible government shutdown?
We won't have one. I'm not worried about that. This is the typical drama. I know you may be shocked to learn this, but the Democrats in the Senate are monkeying things up. They're slowing things up. This will get done at the end of the day.
How are they monkeying?
There's a lot of procedures. We could have done this week, but they're stretching this thing out with a bunch of things they do procedurally to draw this out for another week. So I think we could have resolved this issue faster. They're moving it into next week. I'm not that worried about it.
Their argument is that funding for the Flint water crisis should be included in that. What's your
Well,
feeling?
there's a precedence here, which is Flint has gotten some emergency spending, but there are a lot of cities that have lead pipes. Kenosha and Milwaukee have lead pipes. These are mostly locally funded local issues, not federal issues. There's a point to be made there. But also, these water issues should belong in a different legislation, the Water Resources Bill, which is what we're moving through Congress simultaneously. So there's a place to have that debate, and we shouldn't use that issue to prevent government funding.
When you look at the election, what do you think?
I think this is a country that is closely divided. I look at the potential of fixing our country's problems. They're right around the corner. If we can get government lined up where we can actually get these things done, we are in a vicious cycle in this country, whether it's poverty, the economy, national security, and people are losing faith that this government is just growing cold, distant, and arrogant away from them. And that's the vicious cycle America's on. I see a vision in a world where if we get the basics right, we can turn things around and get us in a virtuous cycle pretty quickly. And I have no idea which way this election is going to go. It's really that kind of an election where it's not really clear the direction we're going. And so I'm very hopeful that this can go the right way and we get these solutions underway. The reason I took this job as Speaker, a job I never was looking for, is to do big things, is to fix these problems. And to do it soon, because I really worry if we don't tackle these problems in our country soon, they're going to tackle us.
You've been in the job for a year. How's it sit?
It's fine. It's a job, like I said, I've always known about it, watched it. I've been in Congress a while, but I never wanted it. But I had to redesign it, make it more of a policy job, more of a job to spend the time on the issues that I want to work on, and get this place working more. And what I also think is we're a republic, but in Congress, we need to let people's voices be heard. We need to let the system open up and be more participatory, and I've been able to do that, and I feel pretty good about that.
Two final questions. For years, when constituents would send you questions about the president's birth, you would have a simple reply, which was to send them a copy of his birth certificate. Why was that copy of the birth certificate not good enough for the party's nominee?
You're going to have to ask him that question. I haven't paid that close attention, but I'm pretty sure once he saw the birth certificate,
Turns out no. For years after it was. But what
I
does
don't-
that mean?
I don't have a good answer for you, John. You're going to have to ask him that.
Yeah, but I mean, for 5 years he advocated this. Just in terms of being
Yeah.
president, what is that? How should people think about that?
Well, I'm glad he's actually acknowledged the truth, that our president is an American, was born in America.
You going to keep the House? You going to pick up seats?
Yeah, I don't know what the seats, we have a chance of picking up a number of seats. I do think we're going to keep the House. I think we're doing very well. One of the reasons we're doing well is because we're offering a plan. What I'm trying to do is take our party from being seen as an opposition party to being a proposition party, offering people solutions. That's what House Republicans are out in America doing, and we're proud of this. And we want to put these ideas into law to solve problems, and that's what we hope this election can be more about, and that's what we're endeavoring to do.
Mr. Speaker, thanks so much.
Thank you, John.